Hi, I'm Matt Gilgenbach from 24 Karat Games, and I'm going to talk to you about how I create and tune effects for our game, Retrograde. This effect is the enemy laser hitting the player. It uses the same effects when the player takes damage from messing up a player laser. Because they share the effect, the player doesn't get clear feedback as to what they did wrong, so I'm going to change it. First, I'm going to remove the rift effect that is shared with the player laser. That was the only effect it used, so I'll have to code up some new ones. First thing I coded was having the enemy laser effects shrink when they disappear. Looks okay, but it needs some adjustment. Our engine has an in-game tweak menu, which is the most important thing for effect tuning. With this, I can adjust all the parameters for the effect and preview it in real time. This ability allows rapid iteration and enables you to do the experimentation required to create impressive effects. Since time is reversed, the shots aren't colliding with the player. When the player blocks them, it creates a temporal anomaly. So, I need to add a particle effect with the space-time distortion to show that. It's important to experiment with a wide range of values to try and find out what works best. When tuning an effect, you want to try extreme values and large changes so you can narrow in on the values that look the best. It's important to give thought to how you organize your tweak menu and what values you put in there. You want to express the variables in the way that are easy for you to understand rather than what the computer is actually working with. For example, it's useful to put angles in degrees when the computer will work with them in radians. As well, if we're tweaking sound, we'd want to express volume in decibels rather than amplitude because that's easy for us to understand. The distortion effect particles are rendered to a special layer that displaces the screen buffer based on the normal map. It is helpful to see the particles as they are rendered in order to make sure it's working as it should. We have the functionality to change what layer the particles are rendered in from the tweak menu. After a lot of tweaking, I was able to get the effect to a point that I was happy with it. However, it's important to layer particle effects, so I'm not done yet. The way I envisioned this effect was that the space-time hole absorbed the shot, but the energy from the laser explodes out. So next up, we need to do the energy explosion. One of the great things to be able to tweak is the sampler used for the particle effect. Having a list of all the samplers that are loaded in the game that you can scroll through is extremely helpful. Sometimes what I had in mind for an effect doesn't work out, and I can get a cool new idea by changing the sampler. Sometimes I change it to something that I wouldn't expect would look good with the effect that I'm trying to create. You can often get surprising results by changing the sampler to something unexpected. For the energy explosion, I wanted to layer two different types of particles. Having two types of particles for an effect can really make a difference in how they look. Oftentimes, when you add more effects, you have to go back and tune the effects that you were previously happy with. It's important not to get discouraged and just think of it that you're homing in on the final effect. Every pass you make brings you one step closer to finishing. At least for me, it's very difficult to call an effect done, but I find it's often helpful to come back later with a fresh set of eyes and do another pass on the effect parameters. After a lot of tweaking, here's the finished effect. Well, finished for now. I hope you found that informative and a useful introduction to creating and tuning effects for video games.